draws in games 2 and 3, especially with a timely Nykthos to enable a fast overloaded Mizium Mortars with his back to the wall.
Mana acceleration has begun here for Arbob. He's going to start with an Elvish Mystic. I think being on the play might play a huge role here, too.
It seems important.
Yeah. Oh, a little frisky getting into the red zone here with the Elvish Mystic. Ketter going to go down to 19. Just a Temple of Abandon, so not a ton of mana acceleration. You know, normally you'd see maybe a Voyaging Satyr or a Sylvan Caryatid on turn 2, but none of that.
And Ken has to be breathing a sigh of relief that was as bad as it got on there on turn 2. But again, who knows? These decks can usher some really explosive turns through Nykthos and Burning Tree Emissary, so.
Yeah, it's almost just the first person to find Nykthos gets to have all the fun. It does look like Ahmad does have one in his hand, but he just doesn't have... It looks like he's pretty land-heavy and doesn't have a great way to build up devotion at this point, as there is the copy of Nykthos that he's been holding. Let's see what spell we have here. This is Xenagos. All right, so he can actually just start adding a whole bunch of mana as he's going to make a token. And we'll see if he attacks. Very unlikely he has to turn back.
Yep. And not really that great because he kind of has to block to protect his Xenagos here, which Ken can simply kill his Satyr for 1 mana, but who knows if that 1 mana matters too much to Ken right now to be willing to spend. And Arbob's basically setting up mana here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily about trying to make a bunch of Satyrs with Xenagos and win the game that way.
So you see Ketter does play his 3rd land. He does have a Boros Reckoner at the ready. I think he's probably committed just to casting a Reckoner this turn, so I'm sure while he does want to attack the Xenagos, he knows that a block will happen with the Satyr token. He's not going to be able to pump his creature, and then he wants to be committed to casting the Reckoner, so I wouldn't be surprised to just see no attack at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting cat and mouse game where, you know, Ken would love to just attack the Xenagos and deal 1 damage to it even, but he knows Arbob's so likely to block.
And he says attack you, which I actually kind of like. It's a little creative and off the wall. Actually gives Arbob a little bit to think about. And still may block in this situation, but we'll see.
Yeah, Arbob's about 100% to block to protect his Xenagos, and Ken's not willing to pump. But he is less than 100% to block himself, because why does he care about the 1 damage? And so Ken with it only adds to 1 point of damage, but that was some outside-of-the-box thinking there.
Hey, that 1 damage could end up mattering here, as Ahmad does draw another copy of Nykthos. But you see his hand, he's also got a Stomping Ground over there, and it looks like he may have 3 or 4 lands in his hand at this point. Nothing good to accelerate to. Doesn't look like he has another Planeswalker, so we'll see what he's able to do on this turn.
And Boros Reckoner can be good, even as much as these games are about doing unfair things. Reckoner attacks and blocks pretty efficiently, even against Arbob's larger threats.
So let's see what Arbob's going to be up to this turn. He does have an active Xenagos. It looks like he's just got too many lands in his hand now. Doesn't have anything sweet to accelerate to, like an Arbor Colossus, like a Garrett Caller of Beasts. He's going to play that land untapped. So this is 5 mana. What's this going to be? All right, so he does have Arbor Colossus hiding out in his hand. That one's pretty big, but it also stares right into the face of a Reckoner.
Yep.
Reckoner seems just huge in this matchup for Ken.
Yep. Again, as long as the games aren't outrageously unfair, people really going off with Xenagos and such, cards like Boros Reckoner can still play a critical role. You see Ken pick up a copy of Chain of the Rocks, and this is kind of what I was talking about here. Ken actually has the ability to interact with some of Arbob's more explosive draws, but at least game 1, the same thing is not true in reverse. Whether or not Ken actually wants to use his Chain of the Rocks this turn is a different story, but he does have some amount of control over what Arbob ultimately does.
Yeah, we'll see what he wants to do with the Reckoner. Looks like he wants to cast the Chain of the Rocks here, potentially. This could take care of the Arbor Colossus, and then the Reckoner can just slam into the Xenagos, and there won't be any really great blocks here for Ahmad. So there is Chain of the Rocks. That's going to take care of the Arbor Colossus, the best threat, that Ahmad does have on the table.
Yeah, it looks like, given Ken's hand, it's basically his entire turn. He has nothing but Stormbird Dragons and 4 mana cards, but this does open up a good window to threaten Xenagos, which I'm sure Ken is in the market to do.
Yeah, could have played a Fanatic and taken care of Xenagos that way. Could have also played Perforos, which would be active at this point, but just going to hold off, play a little off curve, Chain of the Rock's the best creature on the table. Allowed his Boros Reckoner to come into the red zone. So there goes Xenagos. No blocks would really be all that favorable at this point, and Ketter's going to pass the turn back with Frostborn Weird on defense as Ahmad's going to untap those lands, and then Elvish Mystic, and we'll see what he's able to find with his draw step. Looks like maybe a copy of Scavenging Ooze added to the hand, a 2-of in the red-green devotion list.
And the matchup really isn't about cards like that. It's about doing overwhelmingly powerful things.
Take a look at the top card. Temple of Abandon actually going to show a Temple of Abandon, so a Temple of Abandon is going to go onto the bottom of the deck. And just not a very explosive draw here from the Greener Devotion deck. Our #1 seed, I'm sure if he's the #1 seed, he's had some very explosive draws over the course of the weekend, but not in this particular game.
I mean, he did have a very fast Xenagos and Arbor Colossus, but can actually provide some resistance. Again, Chain of the Rocks gives him some outs to this sort of stuff. A lot of other people don't have really good answers to a fast Arbor Colossus, or they have, you know, their mono blue with maybe a couple copies of Rapid Hybridization, something along those lines. Can both overpower with his own explosive Nykthos draws and just kill the things. Not a lot of decks in the format can say that.
Top card going to go to the bottom from Temple of Triumph. You see a Stormbreath Dragon there in Kent's hand that he can't cast just yet. Does have Fanatic Amogus and Perforos in the grip, so he can start dealing a lot of damage very, very quickly. And he will start with the Red God to get things started. Not a bad place to start.
No. And his hand is chock full of power, too. A good job for Arbob there. He did get Pelucranos, so he now has something to do with his mana. But maybe a little too little here if he's not actually able to keep Ken out Devotion, because Perforos can just run wild with this game.
Yeah, Perforos is kind of the calm before the storm here, which is a crazy thing to say, but now everything's going to kind of start firing off after Perforos hits the table. Not to mention that Perforos can actually get into the red zone here, and if Kent is able to find a Nykthos maybe with his next draw, things get really ugly really quickly.
So Arbob only has 2 mana up, so the coast is clear this turn for Kent to do whatever he wants.
Stormbreath Dragon the draw. And as you mentioned, he will have free reign this turn to do whatever he wants to do. And that Pelucranos can do a lot.
Well, he has to get to next turn
Yeah.
without too much damage getting dealt, and he's about to take a boatload.
Stormbreath Dragon comes in, trigger from Perforos, going to deal Ahmad 2 points of damage. I'm going to put him to 15. The God is going to come into the red zone here, along with the Stormbreath Dragon. We'll probably see some chump blocking here. Jump in front of Perforos. That's what we do see. So Satyr Token will jump in front of the Red God. 4 damage will come across in the air. Ahmad's going to go down to 11. And we're just about in range of Fanatic Amogus now. You see the Fanatic's Devotion count. If it were to be cast next turn, you've got 3 from the Reckoner, 2 from the Weird is 5, 2 from the Dragon is 7, 1 from Perforos is 8, 1 from the Matic is 9, and then 2 more from Perforos' triggered ability. That's Xaxes, if we get to that point.
And Arbob's Nykthos not really generating a ton of mana on this board state. It's +1, so
Yeah, not great.
with his 4 Devotion of Green. And there's so much in play he has to try to contain at this point.
You know, the tough part is he doesn't really have anything great to shoot with the monstrosity ability. You know, shooting a Reckoner means it's going to come back to your face or one of your creatures. Frostborn having 4 toughness, God being indestructible. Same thing with the Dragon having 4 toughness. Pelucranos shockingly not terribly relevant right now.
Yeah, and he can't keep Ken off of Devotion for Perforos either, which is another thorn in his side at this point as well.
He is being whittled down here. Feels like his Nykthos is going to be activated here for, it looks like, 4 mana. Backup Nykthos coming down. Let's see some more mana added to the mana pool here. Let's see what Ahmad does want to do with it. So he's going to battle the dragon. So again, not a terrible turn. Problem with Pelucranos is I don't think it can attack due to the Minotaur Wizard that is Boros Reckoner. Now, that Pulukranos now is a 9/9. So that's going to, stop the God from attacking. So that's certainly a step in the right direction.
And I think Ken just picked up a second copy of Fnatic and Bogus, so
Yikes.
it's very likely he can win this game, even if he doesn't want to get too risky with just playing Fanatics back-to-back. He also has 2 Stormbreath Dragons in his hand, so he has numerous routes to victory from this spot.
A pretty good hand all around.
And the Reckoner on defense, again, really prevents Arbob from getting any sort of traction on offense. So
And you always think about how good Reckoner is against red decks, how they have the Mizium Mortars and unfortunately are bad blocks to occur, things of that nature. But it's also just great against these green decks that are just creature laden, and the creatures are so big and you just can't attack past it.
if you're attacking primarily on the ground and you don't have Doomblade type effects in your deck, Reckoner is likely to be good against you, kind of no matter what else is going on in your deck. You don't think of Arbob's deck as being susceptible to Boros Reckoner in the classic sense. He's not playing a bunch of, Chain Walkers and Fire Trick Crusaders, but here we are. It's causing him all sorts of problems.
He's got a 9/9 creature in play that just simply cannot attack. And due to that Reckoner, Perforos also doing a nice job of playing defense here, being indestructible and everything. As Ahmad's going to take a draw here. Looks like Voyaging Satyr was added to his hand. Going to have little to no effect on this board. And I think in a moment, my friend, we'll be bringing it back to the booth for a little trivia time because it looks like Ketter is going to win this one. Very, very confident spot here for Kent. You can see he's just waiting to untap. Got the body moving. Ready to cast one of those dragons or Fnatic.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what Arbob can even go from here,
And there is that Satyr that he picked up on this turn. And I'm kind of with you. I just don't think there's any avenue to victory at this point.
Yeah, remember again. I mean, the only card in his deck that provides any utility on this board really is one copy of Nylea, and not even that would allow him to attack for this turn.
And Ketter shows a Fnatic Amogus and is going to win the game. So Ketter is going to win game number 1 here over Arbob Ahmad. Red-White Devotion. Goldfish is better than Green Devotion, even though it didn't have an Nykthos that game. Still able to get the job done.
Well, and again, to further emphasize this, a lot of it had to do with Chain the Rocks, where Kent was actually able to disrupt some of what Arbob's output was, but Arbob couldn't do the same thing. I mean, even Boros Reckoner was really prohibitive for the way that his draw was, and Ken was able, even without Nykthos, to get enough of his devotion cards into play and set up shop, and was pretty dominant in the first game.
Yeah, I mean, felt pretty one-sided there from what we watched, but we're going to fire away a trivia question. We'll take a look at these gentlemen's sideboard and all that good stuff. So I will let you explain the rules. Now fire away.
Okay.
All right.
We are going to ask a question pertaining to the match, or the tournament, what have you. Tweet that answer at SCG Live and hashtag SCG Premium. And among the correct answers, one will be chosen at random and receive 6 free months of Star City Games premium content.
All right. Within the sideboard of Arbob Ahmad's Green-Red Devotion deck, he's got 2 removal spells. One is Mizium Mortars. He's got 3 copies of that. There's also a 2 of hiding out there that you don't see a lot in Constructed Magic. So if you're able to name that removal spell, that's a 2 of that you don't see very often in Ahmad's sideboard. Hashtag the answer, hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you are following at SCG Live so we can get it over to the winner, and we will announce the winner of our trivia question at the conclusion of our semifinal round. So it is about accuracy, not speed. As we do head back to our match, and we take a look at the sideboards here. Arbob has got a bit of a climb. I don't know if Theme's going to go that way all the time because, he had Nykthos, but he didn't do anything really explosive that game. Ketter didn't have Nykthos, but he felt in control the entire game because of Chain of the Rocks, because of the cards you did mention, Boros Reckoner. Things probably only get better for Ketter here, but you see on Ahmad's sideboard, he's got 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydra, 4 Nylea's Disciple, a Wasteland Viper, a Rurik Thar, a couple Mortars, a couple Time to Feed. These cards are all fine, but none of them are very exciting in this matchup. I think Mortars is the most exciting, and it's just like, okay, I guess, but...
Well, I think he's really going to want Mizium Mortars here as it gives him some ability to combat what's going on here. Other than that, I agree with you. He may want Time to Feed. His creatures are going to be pound for pound bigger. It gives him another answer to Stormbreath Dragon through something like Pulukranos, and that's a sequence that doesn't involve Nykthos. So it's possible he wants those as well, although I'm sure those are more geared towards decks like Boros and Mono Red and what have you, but he's certainly going to want those Mizium Mortars.
On Ketter's side, you see 2 Assemble Legion, an additional Chain of the Rocks to go with his 3 in the main deck, 4 Boros Charms, 3 War Leader's Helix, 2 copies of Wear and Tear, and then 3 copies of Anger of the Gods. We saw him against Mono Blue bring in Anger of the Gods, but I don't think that'll be the case here. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. When I just saw him sideboarding, and he immediately shifted 4 cards to the front.
Okay.
So that's certainly his 4th copy of Chain of the Rocks is among them. And then I can't imagine it being War Leader's Helix. The matchup's not really about that. So it's possible he's bringing in his Angers again. I suspect he believes that he can win a more normalized game of Magic than the Green-Red Devotion deck can. If both of them are without their early enablers, their early mana, either his small creatures to facilitate Devotion or Arbob's literal mana creatures, that he's favored because he can just win the game through things like, Boros Reckoner and Stormbreath Dragon. So he may be going down that road again. I don't think the rest of the sideboard really offers much of interest. He may want, he's aware that Arbob's going to be bringing in his copies of Mizium Mortars. Maybe he wants Boros Charm to fight over that, but probably not. But based on the way that I saw him move 4 cards to the front, I suspect he's bringing in Anger of the Gods once again.
All right, well, you do see the options on the screen. We'll see how both players do sideboard here. If you are Arbob, you just want to get to a more explosive start. Again, didn't do very much. The one thing that you did do, which was in turn 4 Arbor Colossus, got handled for 1 mana in Chain of the Rocks, and things just kind of fell apart from there. If you're Ketter, kind of just want to do what you did the last game, and you can even turn up the heat a little bit if he does draw a Nykthos.
Yeah. The upside now is at least Ken has to think about, well, my board is capable of getting swept away through Mizium Mortars. The first game, he knows he has free reign to just play all the cards in his hand in whatever order he wants to. Now, in the post-board games, he at least has reason for pause, as Arbob can potentially blow up his entire board. Now, the Green-Red Devotion deck is base green, doesn't have a ton of red mana in it, but through Nykthos and cards like Burning Tree Emissary can actually enable an overloaded Mortars without too much difficulty. It's hard for it to do just off of its non-Nykthos mana sources, however. You're basically looking at Arbor Colossus and then a dozen or so red sources. Not the easiest thing to do.
You predicted Mike Kinney was going to win his match over Andrew Kellogg, and he is up a game right now. So you're doing pretty good so far.
I'm on a heater.
Yeah.
My predictions have been pretty good thus far. I think I might have predicted I think I was 3 for 4, I think.
Which one did we miss?
I liked Mono Blue Devotion over Ken Ketter.
You liked Matthew Canada over the man wearing the Canada hoodie.
Yeah. You had to choose one of them.
That's true. Canada was going to win no matter what.
Right.
In one way or another. The Great North might be the champion here. Just you see Ketter on the left. I actually want the story behind the Canada hoodie. I demand to know.
Ken's hand looks very land heavy with
does.
Nykthos. And I believe there's also an Anger of the Gods in that hand as well.
It's kind of interesting to keep a little bit of a slower hand to the board to turn on Nykthos.
It does pair nicely. It does pair nicely with Anger of the Gods. You certainly
Yeah.
don't want a bunch of Ash Zealots, so.
See a Burning Tree Emissary there. It looks like he's going to keep. So Temple of Abandon here. For Ahmad, he'll pass the turn. As Ketter's going to take a draw step. It's a Boros Charm.
So he did go to Boros Charm.
Okay. I guess that's a nice, efficient way to take out a Planeswalker.
He has a couple cards, the cards like Ash Zealot and Hammer Perforos. The game is just not about that sort of thing.
There's a Burning Tree Emissary. Going to put in a Sylvan Caryatid. So a really, really nice start here for Ahmad. Problem is, there's going to be an Anger of the Gods coming here soon. It looks like he's got a Frostmourne to make it perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll see. Something's giving Ken pause here, but this seems like a really good spot to try to set up Weird into Anger. And this is about as textbook as it gets for that.
Yeah, I feel like that might be a little bit of posturing there.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thinking, okay, I've got 2 different 2-drops I want to cast, so maybe I'll cast a different one. When in reality, it's like, no, there's only one I'm casting here. There's an early Pelucranos from Ahmad. So Ketter going to draw a card here. There's a Perforos off of the top. I do think now is as good a time as any to cast this Anger of Gods. I don't think you're going to do better than a 2-for-1.
Yep.
I think
Also,
you just take what you can get.
Yeah, and pinning, Arbob's mana now is also valuable. This is, you still have to deal with the Polukranos, but he can overpower it, find a chain of the rocks, whatever. And in the meantime, he's substantially slowing down Arbob's development.
Oh, there is Anger of the Gods. It's going to clear away the Caryatid and the Burning Tree Emissary. Frostborn and Polukranos are going to stay. And the turn will be passed back.
So now there's an uncontested Polukranos for the time being, but you know, can overpower this thing.
There's a forest for Ahmad. He's going to start by attacking for 5. Ketter's going to go down to 15. Let's see what the follow-up's going to be. It's a Voyaging Satyr. And a passing of the turn over to Ketter, who will take a draw. Another copy of Anger of the Gods.
And something, you know, something positive for Ken at this point right now is it appears, although it's not impossible, that Arbob is not able to overload Mid-Season Mortars. Unless he's slow rolling a mountain in his hand, you probably would have seen him play a Stomping Ground. You certainly would have seen a Temple. And so Ken can continue to develop his board as appropriate.
Let's see what we're going to see on this turn.
Now there is, you know, it feels obvious to just run the play of Burning Tree into Perforos, and I think that's what he's going to do here. But keep in mind that Polukranos can go monstrous next turn, take down the Burning Tree Emissary, and then Kent has less than 5 devotion, 2 red, and no way in his hand to re-get it.
Yep.
We have a slight technical difficulty, so we'll be coming back to the booth momentarily.
Our camera did go out, so we'll be back over that match in just a moment for you guys. But yeah, as you mentioned, the ability to cast a Burning Tree Emissary into Perforos that turn, that's a very obvious play. So when that does happen, you know, he plays those 2 spells, and Polukranos can fire away, take care of the Emissary. Now Perforos isn't live, and now you've got a 7/7 Polukranos out there, kind of running rampant on the battlefield. It's going to force Ketter to draw Chain of the Rocks basically immediately.
Well, he could find another double red creature, which would allow him to get Perforos back, and being indestructible could have a staring contest with Polukranos, but definitely puts him under the gun to find something really fast.
Yeah, and that's I mean, the clock of a 7/7. He's already taken 5. He's at 15. An attack here for 7 because he's probably not blocking a Frostborn. He's going to put him down to 8, and all of a sudden we've got a game that could be over in 1 or 2 turns. And we could be moving on to a 3rd one pretty quickly here.
Yeah, and Arbob doesn't even need to overload mortars at that point. Simply using mortars on the Frostburn weird sets Kent back significantly.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what's going to happen with that match. Again, on our other side of the bracket, we do have Michael Kenny. He's up a game with his red-white, kind of mid. I don't really want to classify it as devotion. I don't know what you really call it.
He went up to me and said, you know, we spoke before the top 4 started this morning because he knew there was some confusion as how we were going to name the deck.
Yeah.
And he said red-white tokens or Boros midrange would be the terms he would use for it. So there's a lot of elements of a lot of different decks going on there. I mean, you have Young Pyromancer plus a lot of burn spells as we come back to the match.
Yeah, he's got that. He's got Assemble the Legion. He's got Perforos. There's a lot of different things going on in Kenny's deck, and with any chance we'll be able to see it in the finals, or perhaps, you know, if there's some time left, we'll be able to see the rest of it in the semifinals. We don't know, but we're back in progress here. We do apologize for the technical problems. It looks like an Arbor Colossus has been added to the table for Ahmad. So he did have Polukranos. He could have went Monstrosity with it, but he chose not to and just add a 7/7 to the board.
And now Ken can breathe a real sigh of relief here as he gets to untap with Boros Charm, which protects him from an overloaded mortars, a large Polukranos, what have you. So now Kent firmly in the driver's seat. His devotion count's pretty stable. He does need to find something to do about this Arbor Colossus before he can really deploy Stormbreath Dragon, but in the meantime, he has to be pretty comfortable about disaster not striking on the previous turn.
And we are being told right now, Michael Kenny slices and dices his way to the finals, taking down Orzhov midrange very, very quickly. So you had a feeling, and you were right. So we will get to see Michael Kenny play at least once this weekend. He's in the finals. He's looking to get a trophy. He wasn't able to hoist it in Indianapolis due to Andrew Shrotno and Turntwald making the finals, but we'll see if he can do it here.
Yeah. You see Arbob with the Temple of Bannon here, putting what I believe to be Scavenging Ooze to the bottom. And Arbob's in all sorts of trouble at this point. Even if the board looks fairly close to parity, there's a Stormwrath Dragon and a Boros Charm. So if Arbob gets too aggressive on any one turn, he's likely to die on the way back. Additionally, this Perforos is actually lethal next turn, as he can pump and give it double strike with his Boros Charm.
Ooh. I didn't even see that play. I kind of like it.
Oh yeah, I've double strike a ton of creatures way worse than a Perforos. So
How do you feel about the attack last turn with just Perforos and leaving these two creatures back on defense? It seems mighty risky.
I don't know. He has a Boros Charm to protect him from anything really bad happening, and again, he kind of wants to induce Arbob to get really aggressive in the spot because Ken has a pretty specific hand.
Life total is going to be 14 and 10 after the attack. We're going to pass the turn back to Ketter. So interesting stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, he basically has lethal at this spot. You know there's no instance in Arbob's deck to punish you from here.
It's true.
So, yeah, induce him to race. Let the board get a little mucked up here. And
So Ketter draws a land.
he can play a land before combat, and then he has, enough to pump Perforos for one more point, double strike his Perforos, and that's 14 exactly.
Do you think there's just no chance he blocks the Perforos?
He might, but then, okay, well then you say go again, and you have some chump blockers, and again, Arbob needs to keep up a lot of mana to threaten monsters with Arbor Colossus. Otherwise, Ken can just deploy a Stormbright Dragon too.
You see, Colossus's monstrosity costs 6 mana, which is not something that Arbob can currently generate.
And additionally, if he chump blocks, it's with Voyaging Satyr, which means he's again short of monstrosity mana next turn.
Yep. Looks like we're going to fire off a dragon here. Okay. So there's a trigger, puts you to 12. I wonder what the attack's going to be. If we're even going to see an attack at all.
Well, I certainly don't think he would deploy a Stormbright Dragon unless he was trying to kill this turn.
Well, I kind of like this play in the fact that he can basically deploy a Stormbright Dragon and that will basically lock up Ahmad's mana for the next turn.
It also
saying, okay, I have to monstrosity this to kill that.
Additionally, Arbob has enough mana right now to Polukranos and fight Burning Tree Emissary, so he needs to get an extra 2 additional red mana symbols.
There was no blocks.
And yeah,
there were no blocks.
There
were no blocks. Double charm on a double strike on a Boros Charm. You see a smile there from Kent Ketter. That's going to get the job done. He's moving on to the finals. We've got 2 red-white decks in the finals here of our Standard Open, 2 very different ones. We'll see which one is the better of the 2. But one thing that does not surprise me, I am sure that Ahmad did not see that Boros Charm coming because I don't think we expected to see it come in from the sideboard.
Well, I was, on the fence about it because